incognito movie star, daintily lean and trim, and for the 100th time he congratulated himself on landing her. She was the daughter of his former mentor, the man who'd shown him how to be a soldier. A good man now rotting under a white stone at Arlington, lost not to battle, but cancer, like too many others who'd served in Vietnam and Korea. The last thing Stewart had asked was for Donovan to take care of his little girl, a mission Donovan was only too happy to undertake. Susan spied him, and a smile spread across her face. Alina and Victoria, Allie and Vicky, were attached to either end of Susan's arms like limpets, dragging her forward. He smiled in return and crossed the remaining few feet to them, grabbing the baby, Vicky, by the waist and swinging her up onto his shoulders. The 5-year-old squealed in frightened pleasure, and Allie smiled indulgently at her little sister. In a perfect imitation of Susan, she crossed her little arms and said,
"You know she just ate, right, Dad? You do that and she might throw up."
8, going on 30. I've been barfed on before by lesser women. He swung Vicky around his shoulders, the helicopter they called it, and she laughed and laughed. Her giggles were infectious, and soon the whole family chimed in. Donovan felt his heart constrict. This, making his daughters and wife laugh, this was sheer perfection. Vicky attached herself to his back like a monkey, and they started walking west. "How are you, chickens?" he asked.
"We're fine,"
Susan answered.
"I got the oil changed on the way to the metro. Apparently we need new wiper blades."
"They always say that," he muttered, and she smiled.
"I know. The danger of sending a woman to do a man's job. I told them I'd let you know, and the kid looked at me like I was an idiot. Have you eaten? I packed us some sandwiches. Vicky had half of hers already. She couldn't wait. I thought we could stop in front of the monument and have a little picnic."
"Sounds great." It sounded like a perfect chance for a sniper to pick them all off one by one, but he wasn't about to share that with Susan. She was hardly delicate, his wife. After years of being the daughter of a soldier, then the wife of one, she was battle-hardened herself. But once the girls had come along, he'd felt an overwhelming need to protect her, to keep her ignorant of all the dangers surrounding them. It only took a few minutes to get to the grassy knoll the monument rested upon. Donovan stared at the obelisk, shaking his head. He'd lived in the district his whole life, yet had never gone up in the monument. For a time, it had been under renovation, and of course September 11th meant it had been closed and the elevators didn't run except for visiting dignitaries. But it was back open now, more than a symbol of the geographical heart of Washington, D.C. It was a symbol of power, phallic, soaring, white marbled, like a flawless compass pointing north, not to the magnetic pole but to the heavens, to the only real masters of the brethren beneath. He really needed to schedule a time and take the girls. He'd heard the view was amazing. They found a spot on the hill and settled in, the buffalo-checked stadium blanket warm underneath them, both girls serious about eating their sandwiches but shivering in excitement, like racehorses in the gates. Donovan understood their anticipation, but for different reasons. He wanted to get down to the cherry blossoms and take their stroll, watch the festivities, and go home. Get them out of harm's way. Home was the only place he could truly relax. These milling masses of people were too much for him. He chided himself. Marking time was one of his worst faults, but blamed it on the crowds, and the feeling that something was wrong. He'd learned the hard way never to ignore his gut. Allie was staring at him, and almost as if she could read his thoughts, set her half-eaten sandwich on the plastic bag and said,
"Can we go, Mommy?"
"Finish your sandwich, baby."
"I'm done. Look, Daddy's done too."
"Eddie," Susan scolded, "eat." He glanced at her, then to Allie. With a sly grin, he shoved the rest of the sandwich into his mouth. Allie responded with giggles and tried to do the same, wedging the Wonder Bread sideways, smearing peanut butter on her cheeks. Vicky, now eating Cheerios from a sandwich bag, proceeded to upend the plastic into her mouth, spilling little O's down her shirt. She looked festooned for a party, and Donovan laughed out loud.